early age. In fact, on my 14th birthday, when I was old enough to work, I got my first job. My mom taught me how to crush it at age 14, how to capitalize, realize, utilize, strategize, and hustle. Hustle. That's what the H stands for. Hustle. You're doing good. This is the exact vest that I wore when I was 14 years old. I can't put it on now because I'm swole now, you know what I'm saying? But back in the day, our brother used to fit in this thing. And and when I was 14 years old, I was a package executive at Winn-Dixie stores. Now, come on, somebody. I wish you could look at my resume. It said this: it was my job to secure the safe transfer of purchased items from the store to the client's motor vehicle in such an ergonomic fashion that it would facilitate a repeat visit within 2 weeks. Come on, somebody. I was a bad boy! But whatever you do,
here's what I'm saying to you. You must have people in your life that serve all four roles if you want to have transformation. You must have the good, the bad, and the ugly, and people that will tell you the truth. If you don't, you will never transform. You will never make it to the next level because you're letting people assuage your thinking about who you want to be rather than telling you who you are. So yes, I did get pregnant with another idea. And here's the other thing about transformation. It's continual and it's never one thing. So while I thought I had to put that down and I didn't bring the book, I never pushed the button. And like 4 days out, I begin to see changes. I begin to say, oh my God, he was right. Of course, I'm never going to tell him that. So if you want to change, if you want transformation, if you want to be all you can be, you want to be that person that goes from brilliant to best, from bitter to better, then you have to make up your mind that all you can be is part of the process of change, and it is continual. So transformation by design is the process of collaborating with your higher power, finding those people in your inner circle who will tell you the truth and lead you out of the darkness into this marvelous light. Welcome to the PNC conference, and I dare you, I absolutely dare you to try to go home the same.
Dr. Gartner and his team of researchers did an interesting study over a 20-plus year period, and what they discovered is that children up until the age of 4 are operating at the genius level. The same group of children were studied in their early 20s, and only 10% were still operating at the genius or brilliance level, and in their late 20s, early 30s, only 2% were still operating at the genius or brilliance level. So the question that you have, like I had, oh brilliant one, you do know that you're sitting next to oh brilliant one, right? Just look at your neighbor and say, good morning, oh brilliant one. Somebody in the back said, I'm glad you finally recognize. You may be slow, but you're worth waiting on. So the question you have, like I had, is where did this genius or brilliance go? It didn't go anywhere, but it became buried by a society that says color within the line, sit down, give it back, you can't do this. And the more a person continues to hear what they can't do, where they can't go, and who they can't become, there is a neurological path that is created in the brain that causes individuals to shut down. So what happens is people have this potential, this insight, this genius. They come to power networking and they want to take everything that they do to the next level. But here's what we've discovered. Your brilliance is ignited and released in an environment where you're celebrated rather than tolerated.
The number one problem facing today's black entrepreneur is our addiction to labor as the primary mechanism by which we generate revenue in our business. And there has been a cataclysmic failure by the black entrepreneur to monetize our knowledge. Now somebody, anybody, everybody, ask me why. Because since the days of slavery, we have been rewarded for our labor. Since the days of slavery, we have been taught to believe that the thing that makes us valuable as a people, the thing that makes us valuable as a culture, the thing that makes us valuable as a race is our labor. And what it has done is it has created a generation of black entrepreneurs who have overvalued our labor and undervalued our knowledge. I want you to repeat after me. There's more money in what I know than what I do. Because sometimes you don't need more clients, and sometimes you don't need more customers. Sometimes you need more of the customers and more of the clients that you already have spending more money with you. Black CEO out.
Don't miss this. Consciousness, obedience, discipline that will lead to learning, earning, and returning. How does that work? It works, my brothers and sisters, when we hear one like Langston Hughes testify, even though he reached the summit of literary brilliance. But listen to his own testimony as he says, I've been scarred and battered. My hopes the wind and scattered. Snow has frizzed me. Sun has baked me. Looks like between them they done tried to make me stop loving, stop living, stop laughing. But I don't mind. I'm still here. Check out what Langston Hughes is declaring. He is declaring that yes, I have achieved the mountaintop of literary success and service and swaggerliciousness. But understand, I've been scarred and battered. The only way that we are going to experience that gospel of consciousness, obedience, discipline, leading to learning, earning, and returning. God has a way of allowing life to scar us, and out of that scarring, we experience a power that enables us to make a difference in this world. I'm not coming through clear, and so I'll go ahead and quote, who is it? Lauryn Hill, because Lauryn piggybacks on Langston Hughes when she says Black rage is founded on blatant denial, squeezed economics, subsistence, survival, deafening silence, social control. Black rage is founded on wounds on the soul. Do you see it again? The scars, the wounding. You will not reach the mountaintop of success, significance, and swaggerliciousness without getting scarred.
Do not let a setback hold you back, because a setback is a setup for a comeback. If there is no pain, there's no gain. If there's no risk, there's no reward. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. If there is no test, there is no testimony. If there is no trial, there is no triumph. No disappointment, no discipline. No problems, no power. Which means sometimes you have to go through in order to grow through. Which means that there's nothing ventured, there's nothing gained. If you don't believe, then don't bother, so go hard or go home, because failure is not falling down, failure is staying down.
McKinsey Consulting says that within the next few years, 250 million knowledge worker jobs will be eliminated because of automation. Can your business be automated? And if not, what will you do to stay relevant in the global economy? What's interesting is the Gallup organization in their research says that only 13% of employees in 142 countries are emotionally engaged, emotionally committed to taking that business to the next level. When I looked at that and I really began to consider our work of talking about brilliance and teaching about brilliance over the last decade, here's what we've discovered. Brilliance is your insight, your potential, your genius. When you are operating in your brilliance, it absolutely makes you come alive. When I first started writing and talking about brilliance, I based it on some of the research work of Dr. Howard Gartner, who is professor of education at Harvard. Dr. Gartner, he and his team of researchers did an interesting study over a 20-plus year period, and what they discovered is that children up until the age of 4 are operating at the genius level. The same group of children were studied in their early 20s, and only 10% were still operating at the genius or brilliance level, and in their late 20s, early 30s, only 2% were still operating at the genius or brilliance level. So the question that you have, like I had, oh brilliant one, you do know that you're sitting next to oh brilliant one, right? Just look at your neighbor and say, good morning, oh brilliant one. Somebody in the back said, I'm glad you finally recognize. You may be slow, but you're worth waiting on. So the question you have, like I had, is where did this genius or brilliance go? It didn't go anywhere, but it became buried by a society that says color within the line, sit down, give it back, you can't do this. And the more a person continues to hear what they can't do, where they can't go, and who they can't become, there is a neurological path that is created in the brain that causes individuals to shut down. So what happens is people have this potential, this insight, this genius. They come to power networking and they want to take everything that they do to the next level. But here's what we've discovered. Your brilliance is ignited and released in an environment where you're celebrated rather than tolerated. When you are in an environment that celebrates you rather than tolerates you, that environment invites you to be a vitamin, not just an aspirin. And when you understand how to be a vitamin, not just an aspirin, you are in business and you are not at the Power Networking Conference to leave an impression, but when you leave here, it is about leaving an imprint. So the question then becomes, why do we need to shift our brilliance? Well, over the last few years, I've studied a lot of organizations, I've worked with many organizations, and I won't mention their names to impress you, but here's what I've discovered. Many organizations discovered over the last few years that sometimes they want broadband results, but they're using dial-up methods. And what is it that they need to let go of so that they can become all they possibly can be? But if we bring this down to an individual level, if the truth be told, for the last 20 years, at some level, I have suffered with the disease called CIC. CIC stands for complex, it's really about how am I so inferior to everyone else around me that I develop this complexity of comparing myself to everybody. So I am comparing, I'm becoming inferior, and I'm developing a complex. And what I am telling people right now, it is time to let it go. I just need about 3 people in the room just to lift your hands and just say, on 3, I'm gonna let it go. 1, 2, 3. The moment you say let it go, now turn your hands in, turn your hands like this, and on 3, I want you to say let it come. 1, 2, 3. Until you let it go, you can't. Because the moment you let it go, you let it come, because I'm no longer inferior, because I don't have to compare myself to anyone. 31 years ago, Mom and Dad loaded the family station wagon and drove me and my brother from Buffalo, New York, down to Atlanta, Georgia, where they dropped me off at Morehouse College. At the end of my freshman year at Morehouse, they called and said, we don't have the money to send you back to Morehouse, nor do we have money to bring you back home to Buffalo, but we do love you. I mean, I realized the brother didn't quite feel the love. So I dropped out of Morehouse, moved into the southwest part of Atlanta, Georgia, where I use public transportation that believes in moving African Americans rapidly through Atlanta. And some of y'all will get that later. And so it's probably one of the lowest points of my life, and I eventually did go back to school, finish my undergrad, finish my master's degree. I was just on the 10-year plan. But a part of what my struggle was, I didn't finish in the 4 years that everybody else did. And sometimes in business and in life, people are so busy looking at everyone else that they don't stay in their lane and understand that there's a time, there's a season when everything is going to happen. So when it comes time to shift, when a person does shift and overcome the understanding that I don't need to compare myself to anyone, what happens is they begin to see like they have never seen before. As you look at this slide, by show of hands, how many of you can see the candle in the slide? By show of hands. All right, keep your hand up. If you're sitting next to someone and their hand is up, ask them, oh, brilliant one, where is the third face? Where is the third face? Now, if you can see the third face, keep your hand up. All right, if you can see the third face, all right, if a hand is still up, ask them to show you the third face. Everybody's got to see this. Everybody's got to see this. Show me the third face. Show me the third face. All right, and when you see the third face, put your hand up. All right, great. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you realize the first time I put this slide up and I asked you if you saw the candle right away, right? But how many realize that the third face was always there? You have come all the way to National Harbor, Maryland to understand if you're going to take your business to the next dimension, you have to see the third face. You have to see what others don't see in order to have what others won't have. Now, what I've discovered, the reason sometimes people don't see the third face is because they have emotional equity in the way they've always done it. I need you to do a quick favor with me. Everybody hold up your arm where your watch is. Hold up your arm where your watch is. Watch a piece of jewelry. And would you please, ma'am, please, sir, take your watch or piece of jewelry off and put it on the opposite wrist. Put it on the opposite wrist. Now, if you don't have a watch or piece of jewelry, tell your neighbor, let me borrow something from you and I'll give it to you next year when I see you. You might not see your stuff. Your stuff gonna be gone, all right? All right, how does it feel having the watch or piece of jewelry on the opposite wrist? How does it feel? Awkward, weird, right? What else? All right, now let me ask you a question. The most popular question at Disney is what time is the 3 o'clock parade? That'll hit some of you later on. I know we're moving quick. Some of you are gonna get that later. Here's what I've discovered. The reason sometimes people never see the third face is because they have emotional equity in the way they've always done it. So all of a sudden, disruption happens, change happens, the rug is pulled from out of their feet, and instead of raising their prices, they lower their prices. And I'm telling you right now that some of you need to double your price, because there are customers that are waiting for you to get to a place called there. But you can't get there unless you get there in here. And when you get there in here, all of a sudden they will show up and begin to do business with you because you got there in here. Hello, somebody. I feel my help coming on up in here. So we're going to pass the plate and let you sow a seed in a moment. Okay, anyway. Corporate presentation. All right. The reason you have to connect with 50 people is because your piece of the puzzle connected to another piece of the puzzle completes the whole puzzle. Because if I have anybody that has ever put a puzzle piece together, you understand when you turn the box over that you all see the big picture. So when I connect with your brilliance, I'm not threatened by your brilliance because I need you and you need me. And when I understand that, I put the watch on the opposite wrist because it's uncomfortable. Now here's what I want you to do. For the next 24 hours, please ma'am, please sir, I want you to leave the watch on the opposite wrist, because the watch on the opposite wrist is going to serve as a reminder what's the third face. Because when I understand the power of the third face, I understand that I came all the way to National Harbor, Maryland to understand it's time for me to vujade. Big ideas that matter. Deja vu is been there. Vujade is going there, doing that. When I understand how to vujade, what I will do is I will look at everything that I've done and said, when everybody is zigging, I'm going to zag. Vujade is understand how do I unleash the inner salmon to swim upstream. Vujade is having an internal alignment for external execution. Vujade is understanding I have a sense in my gut. 80% of your nervous system is in your gut about a direction I need to head in, but I don't have the data. Siri is not giving me feedback, but I know in my spirit up in here, it's time to vujade. When you think about your business, if you keep doing it the way you've always done it, watch on the opposite wrist, you will always compete on price. But when you vujade, you understand that your brand is not the product or service you offer. Vujade. Your brand is an emotion, a connection, a perception, a moment, and a memory. When I understand how to vujade, I don't chase money, money chases me. When I understand how to boujade, I quit my job and go to work, because a job stands for just overboard. When I boujade, I understand that a paycheck is given to people who show up, but opportunities are given to people who work beyond what they're paid to do. Boujade, the big idea. So somebody says, okay, Simon, that's great. Why is this so important? Well, when I first went to work at Disney a number of years ago, if you look at me, I am all about the air conditioner. I'm not trying to work in anybody's theme park in Florida in the months of June, July, and August. But one day I got a call to get off my blessed assurance and go and work in the park. Go and work in the park, so got on a blue smock, a broom, a dustpan in my hand, my name tag that says Simon from Buffalo, New York, and I have beads of sweat pouring down my head. And I'm just like, I am not feeling the love. I am like, whatever. But it dawned on me that the Mickey police might be watching me through the camera. So I said, I need my job, so let me flash the Disney smile. So sure enough, some guests were coming towards me, because at Disney, you never call them guests, you never call them customers, you call them guests. They were coming towards me, and they caught a glimpse of my name tag. They said, you're from Buffalo, New York. I said, yes. They said, we're from Buffalo, New York. Like, no way. They're like, where'd you go to school? Where'd you grow up? What's your parents' names? I didn't know these people from Adam's house yet, let alone from a can of paint, but we're having a major conversation. So they said to me, I said, what should we do? I said, oh my goodness, you gotta go and ride Tower of Terror. How many of you have been on Tower of Terror? All right, for those of you who've not been on Tower of Terror, imagine with me for a moment. A 13-story elevator shaft that takes you up, drops you, you scream your bloody guts out. It is phenomenal. And then I said, go and eat at the Brown Derby and experience Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular. So a couple of hours later, I'm back at my desk, drinking something cold to cool off, and that's when I had the whack upside the head. That's when I had the V8 moment. That's when I had the Horseshack moment. Somebody said to me the other day, who's Horseshack? I said, oh Lord. Anyway, what I realized is Disney never sent me out to the park to sweep the streets. They sent me out to the park to connect with the family that have probably saved 3 to 5 years of their discretionary income to come to Disney for maybe once in their lifetime. And a family of 4 at a 7-day stay, according to Disney Business Analytics, will spend about $10,000. So the reason it took Disney 2 years to hire me, 10 interviews, and a 10-page psychological analysis from Gallup, is not like they were trying to hold a brother back, but they simply understood hire for attitude, train for success. Training does not fix what HR doesn't catch. And what I begin to understand in that moment is that Disney didn't hire me to do a job. Disney hired me to create a moment. Some of you are in business doing what you have always done, but I came all the way from Orlando, Florida to tell you in this moment, in this time, it's time to boujade your business and understand that moments create momentum, and momentum creates monumental results. Can you create a moment, or are you just more of the same? I am Simon T. Bailey, and I approve this message.
All righty. I want to welcome all of the PNCers, those for the first time, and I want to welcome you to a transformational experience. So my big idea today is transformation by design. We are designed to transform. This conference is designed to help you transform in mind, body, soul, and spirit. So this morning, the metaphor has been at the very beginning of the conference as you board this luxury ship. And we release you to disembark, and you are set free to all of the wonderful sessions and everything, and to scour these decks of plenty. I say to you that as you are enjoying these delectable appetizers and hors d'oeuvres and main courses and a veritable buffet of unlimited choices by which to grow professionally and personally, I offer you another perspective. It's the perspective of the psychological journey of how to manage this cruise. Because what I want to say to you, that if you are not in the business of transforming, then you are not in the business of growing. You should not leave this conference the same way you came. Not emotionally, not psychologically, and certainly not as a people who are and have been the subject of slavery and who have been deeply wounded. So I don't care what you say or how dressed up you are, there is a little bit of that left. I don't care how liberated you are. I really don't care. I know that we are deeply wounded. You cannot keep people in slavery for hundreds of years and do not think that the scars are there. So I'm going to take you on this transformation journey by design. And the first step of the transformation by design is that you have to be willing to want to be part of the change process in your own life. As children, when our babies are born, and as children, they develop and grow naturally. You don't have to worry. The hair's going to come in, the nail's going to come in, the organs, everything is going to grow. And so the choice of development as a child is automatic. It's built into the DNA. But as adults, once we have matured, we have to make that conscious decision to grow. So you have to make that decision. If you got here and you're still crazy, it's okay, we're going to help you. You just have to admit it. Do not walk around so dignified that you don't get what's coming to you. If you're feeling crazy, find a coach. If you don't know what to do with your money and you barely got here, go find a financial advisor. Make sure that your goal has to do with your need and it doesn't have to do with where you want to be seen. Because we don't want you to leave as dumb as you came, and some of us are dumb. All right, so that perspective. So beware that you choose actively with a purpose and with a passion. And let's talk about passion, because as a coach, I take my clients through pain, passion, purpose, and profit. So I only did the title, Let the Cash Register Go Ka-ching, because I wanted to please my brother, because we're all, in this avenue of revenue. But that's not really my thing. Because what I'm really about is the head. So I have perfected the ability to look at nuts and deal with it. And understand that as a people, we have to engage. We don't like to tell people our business. How many of you were raised in a home that said, we don't talk about that and don't air your dirty laundry? And some people have tons of laundry at home. It's called baggage. It's called emotional baggage. And I want you to free yourself of that. So how do you free yourself? By transformation by design, there are 6 basic steps. I can't tell them all to you because I'm on this limited timeline, but I will tell you this. The first step is a yearning. What is a yearning? A yearning is an urge to achieve something in your life. It's more than a want, because we have miswants. A yearning is something that you know you want to do. It's in your gut. It's that gut thing. It's that thing that wakes you up in the morning that you keep ignoring, that you will not do. That's what a yearning is. It's an undeniable urge. Then there is engagement. We are a social people. That's who we are. We have been disconnected by many of societal rules and regulations and what we think about ourselves, and low self-esteem. I know how many people in have low self-esteem. Nobody will raise their hand, so that means everybody is equal. I know you all have it. So my point is, because when you ask questions like that, you're not looking for an answer. What you're really looking for is the face. And see, I can see your face. You can only see me, but I can see all of you. And so I don't care how dressed up you are. If you've come here with some of those issues, those things can be settled as you choose your workshops, as you choose on this luxury liner. And then the other part of engagement is passion. What wakes you up? What do you want to do? Now, I'm not talking about erroneous passion. I'm not talking about the passion that happens behind closed doors. Hopefully all of you have settled that matter before you got here. And I have nothing to do with that. But I'm talking about the passion that drives you, those triggers that say, this is what I want to be. This is who I am. That's why you're here. That's why you're here. To stir up that passion, to be transformed by design. Now, who designed this transformation? Your higher power. You are in collaboration with your higher power for this transformation. And if you think that in the 96 hours or how many hours it is that when you leave, that you're going to look at the world the same, I assure you that you're not. This is about my 10th conference, and I'm still always amazed. I'm still always nervous. I can't sleep 2 nights before because I always say, God, do I have anything else to say? And then I realize that the process of transformation gives you continual articulation and the ability to talk about, because at this level I could talk about that, and at this level I could talk about that. So for the last 2 years, I started a book. It's called Transformation by Design. Oh, is that a surprise to you? No. And so in the last 2 months, I decided that it was time to finish this book because I was going to bring it to PNC. Because there is somebody in my life that moves me and drives me, even though I don't get a chance to talk to him every day. You know that person in your life that always resonates in your mind, that you're always trying to say, I could do it, I could show him, I could do it. And you know who that person is for me. That person is that person. So I was finishing up the book and the phone rang. The conference was 8 days away. I look at the phone, I say, I'm surprised to hear from George. It's 8 days out from the conference. He should be mentally disturbed by now. Why is he talking to me? So I saw his picture, so I answered the phone. My gut was jumping. I figured, what's wrong? He said, hi, sis. We talked about some business. And he said, how's your book coming? I said, it's fine. I am 1 day from pressing the button to send it to the publisher. He said, oh, remind me of the title. I said, it's Transformation by Design. He said, oh, that's a good title. But you will not be doing that. So I look at the phone. I said, he's on the other line. He can't tell me what to do. So I said, well, what do you, he said, no, you can't do that. You just had that baby. See, we talk in metaphors, George and I, and everything for me is about a birthing. So I've been telling him for a couple of weeks, I'm birthing this baby, I'm having this baby, I got labor pain. He said, no, you can't bring that baby. You just had that baby. You can't put that baby on the floor and expect it to walk. You're not bringing that baby to PNC. I said to myself, watch me. And then he said, no, you're not doing that. And I said, I'm not? He said, no. You got to give that baby a chance to rest. He said, but I want you to put that baby aside, and I've got a new idea for you. I said, yeah, what's the new idea? He said, I want you to do a different speech at PNC. I don't want you to do one that we talked about. It's 8 days out. I want to kill him. So I said, okay, I'm going to do a different speech. What is it? We talk about it. I hang up the phone and I go, what is he talking about? I've already transformed. I've already written a book. Why is he giving me a new speech? So then I think about, but what about my baby? What about the beautiful baby that I had? And she wasn't even melon challenged like me. I had this baby. I had her. She was ready to walk. And he said, no, throw that baby down, because I got a new idea for you. Here it is. And I said, my God, I just gave birth. I'm still weak. The blood is still flowing, and now I'm impregnated again by my own brother. This is incestuous. I cannot do this. Here's a gem of an embryo, and he says, I want you to bring this to PNC in 7 days. I sent out contractors on him, but they couldn't find him because they were looking for somebody chocolate when I said he was an African American. So here is the point. The point is, this is what I learned in that process, truthfully. Because George is my hero. The person that challenges you the most is the person that's going to take you to transformation. Often there may be several people, but in my case, because we grew up in toxic foster homes and we're so close, bonded by that experience, he's also my hero and the protagonist. So what do you do when it's both? So he's also my mentor and my tormentor. So what do you do? So when the phone rings, you go nuts. And so here's what I'm saying to you. You must have people in your life that serve all 4 roles if you want to have transformation. You must have the good, the bad, and the ugly, and people that will tell you the truth. If you don't, you will never transform. You will never make it to the next level because you're letting people assuage your thinking about who you want to be rather than telling you who you can be. So yes, I did get pregnant with another idea. And here's the other thing about transformation. It's continual, and it's never one thing. So while I thought I had to put that down, and I didn't bring the book, I never pushed the button. And like 4 days out, I begin to see changes. I begin to say, oh my God, he was right. Of course, I'm never going to tell him that. So if you want to change, if you want transformation, if you want to be all you can be, you want to be that person that goes from brilliant to best, from bitter to better, then you have to make up your mind that all you can be is part of the process of change, and it is continual. So transformation by design is the process of collaborating with your higher power, finding those people in your inner circle who will tell you the truth and lead you out of the darkness into this marvelous light. Welcome to the PNC conference, and I dare you, I absolutely dare you to try to go home the same.
The number one problem facing today's black entrepreneur is our addiction to labor as the primary mechanism by which we generate revenue in our business. Now, that is not to say that working hard is not a good thing. That's not to say that working hard doesn't have merit. But we work hard in so much as to perfect our knowledge. But once our knowledge has been perfected, it is incumbent upon us to monetize that which we know. And there has been a cataclysmic failure by the black entrepreneur to monetize our knowledge. Now somebody, anybody, everybody, ask me why. Because since the days of slavery, we have been rewarded for our labor. Since the days of slavery, we have been taught to believe that the thing that makes us valuable as a people, the thing that makes us valuable as a culture, the thing that makes us valuable as a race is our labor. Since the days of slavery, we have been punished for daring to know something. Since the days of slavery, we have been punished, we have been threatened, we have been killed for daring to know something, let alone having the audacity to share something. And what it has done is it has created a generation of black entrepreneurs who have overvalued our labor and undervalued our knowledge. Here's the thing that I want you to know. I want you to repeat after me. There's more money in what I know than what I do. See, it's one thing to say that. It's another thing entirely to believe that. See, here's what I know. Is that as entrepreneurs, we are the can-do generation. We want to do everything. And so every time something needs to get done, I'm raising my hand. Who's going to do the marketing? Me. Who's going to do the sales? Me. Who's going to do the servicing? Me. Who's going to do the accounting? Me. And here's what I want you to know, that the answer to who doesn't always have to be you. You're not Superman, you're not Superwoman, you can't leap tall buildings with a single bound, and at some point you have to move beyond this belief that says that if you want something done right, you gotta what? It's the biggest lie they ever told you. If you really want something done right, you gotta put a process in place. If you really want something done right, you gotta put a system in place. And in the absence of a process and in the absence of a system, what we've done is replaced it with I. And it's created an addiction to our own labor. If our titles were to match our actions, we would probably be more accurately referred to as black solopreneurs rather than black entrepreneurs. So I dare you today to change your thinking. That we gotta change our focus. The first thing we gotta do to ensure the rise of the black entrepreneur is we gotta break the addiction to our own labor. The second thing we gotta do is break other people's addiction to our own labor. Number 3, we got to stop linear thinking. And instead of linear thinking, we need to adopt circular thinking. After all, it is our heritage. And I believe that our linear thinking was brought about with this belief that we should start with the end in mind. And I believe that adopting that belief has caused us as entrepreneurs to become more linear in our thinking. It's caused us to adopt finite thinking. And so here's what happens, is that I see my resources as finite. I see the results that I produce in the lives of others as finite. I see the revenue that comes into my business as finite. I become a thinker. All I see is the limits as opposed to seeing the opportunities and the options in my business as limitless. See, when we start with the end in mind, here's what happens. Here's the client experience. Client comes into our business. Our belief as the business is that all we got to do is get them to the end. So the client comes into our business. They get started right here. They come through our process. And then we get them to the end. And when that client gets to the end, they're left with a simple dilemma. They're left with one big question. What's next? And so they go find the next business to work with. They go find the next product to buy. They go find the next service to invest in. And that's the client experience. And so at the end of the day, we walk the client right off the cliff with no next in store. But let's go back and let's look at your experience. Client comes into your business. You get them started. After you get them started, you take them through your process. After they get through your process, they get all the way to the end. And when they get to the end of your process, you are left with the same question, you are left with the same dilemma that the client had. All you want to know is what's next. And all that you do is you go look for your next client and you go look for your next customer. And what's happening is you're starting over and over and over again. And the problem with that is that it's very linear in nature. Here's the thing that I want you to know. Sometimes you don't need more clients. Sometimes you don't need more customers. Sometimes you need more clients and more customers that you already have spending more money with you. See, I wish that I could tell you that I came up with this train of thought all by myself, but one day I had an epiphany. And I was talking to my 7-year-old son. This is my son right here, and he's the love of my life. I mean, I call myself an entrepreneur, but I'm probably more accurately referred to as a familypreneur, as a dadpreneur. It's the reason why I do this. So anyway, we are having this discussion. We're watching this cartoon called The Roadrunner. Anybody ever seen The Roadrunner? Raise your hand if you've seen The Roadrunner. That's real cartoons. Roadrunner, Bugs Bunny. I don't know what they watch today on TV. I watch real cartoons. So while I was watching the real cartoons, he says to me, "Daddy, why does the dumb coyote keep running off the cliff?" And I said, "Oh, he probably just didn't see it, son." Daddy, he ran off the cliff last time. So I had to come up with this answer. And so I started watching the show, and I had a realization, is that the reason why the Roadrunner kept talking or getting the coyote to run off the cliff is because the coyote really was a linear thinker. And the real question is not what is a linear thinker. The real question is, are you a linear thinker? See, here's the thing. If you ever watch any episode of The Roadrunner, here's what happens. There's the coyote. He's chasing the Roadrunner. He's chasing the Roadrunner. He's chasing the Roadrunner. He's what? He's chasing the Roadrunner. And eventually, the Roadrunner just steps to the side. And the coyote just runs right past him, runs right off the cliff, and all you hear is, episode starts over, doesn't it? And he gets up and do the same daggone thing. So what is a linear thinker? A linear thinker is a person who is locked in to one belief to accomplish a particular goal. What is a linear thinker? A linear thinker is a person who sees an end to everything. And so what we got to do is we got to move from linear thinking to circular thinking, because otherwise you'll be just like the coyote. You'll run off the cliff, your business will crash, your revenue will crash, and then at the end, the Roadrunner will say two words. Does anybody know what those two words are? Meep? Yeah, stands for you idiot. Many of us are doing this with our business. We're running our business off the cliff. We're running our revenue off the cliff. We're running our clients off the cliff. So I want you to think circular. Why do I want you to think circular? Because the most profitable companies in the world think circular. Let me prove it to you. If you have an iPhone in this audience, just raise your hand. If you have an iPhone, raise your hand. Just look around. Look at all the iPhone users out there. Now, let me tell you how iPhone operates. They are not running a linear system. They are running a circular model. They are running an evergreen revenue model. Write that down. They are using an evergreen revenue model. Now, I was an Apple nut. I bought an Apple iPhone, and I stood in line for like 3 hours to get it, and I was so excited when I got it. And so after I bought the iPhone, eventually, I bought the iPad. Then, I gave up my PC and bought a MacBook Pro. Then, I attached this thing to my television called Apple TV. Then, I came to the stage with an Apple Watch. I brought it just for you. And then, after I spent all of that money, it was time to buy iPhone 2, iPad 2, MacBook Pro 2, Apple TV 2, buy the next Apple Watch. And afterwards, it's going to be time to buy what? iPhone 3. How many of you have purchased more than one version of the phone you currently have? Raise your hand and then look around. It's because you are operating within an ecosystem. And what's happening is that the linear thinker is thinking about the next customer. The circular thinker is thinking about the customer they already have. Because sometimes you don't need more clients, and sometimes you don't need more customers. Sometimes you need more of the customers and more of the clients that you already have spending more money with you. Apple is one of the most profitable companies, the most valuable companies in the entire world. And what they are running is an ecosystem. What they are running is an evergreen revenue model. But I didn't come here to talk about the evergreen revenue model for Apple. I came here to talk about your ecosystem. See, here's how we know that Apple was running an evergreen revenue model. When Steve Jobs went on vacation, the money was still coming in. Yes or yes? When Steve Jobs got sick, the money was still coming in. Yes or yes? When Steve Jobs passed away, the money was still coming in, yes or yes, because he was running an evergreen revenue model. But the question today is not about Steve Jobs' evergreen revenue model. The question today is not about Steve Jobs' evergreen revenue system. It's about your ecosystem. We got to get busy building our own ecosystem. And when we build our own ecosystems, we will be in place to really start to take back our communities. Here's the thing, is that the evergreen revenue model is based upon automation. It really is. Now, when I say automation, don't get spooked, don't get scared. Sometimes when I say automation, people start thinking about robots working in the background. They start thinking about, do I have to be a rocket scientist? We start thinking like the Jetsons. This boy, Elroy, it's not the Jetsons. We use automation every day in our lives. Automation is simply the process that we use to simplify our lives through the use of technology. By a show of hands, who's ever been to a Home Depot? Yeah, everybody. 10 years ago, if you went into a Home Depot, you saw a bunch of people walking around with orange aprons. Going to a Home Depot today, you see less orange aprons, and you see a bunch of automated cash registers. You've seen this, yes or yes? And so what we got to do is we got to get busy using automation in our business. Whenever you think automation, I want you to think less labor, more money. Less labor, more revenue. Less of my labor, more revenue. Because you can automate your business and multiply your profits. You can automate your business and rescue your time. You can automate your business and take back your life. But you're going to have to start to embrace technology as a way of simplifying the way by which you bring revenue into your business. So I realize that many of us do not have an evergreen revenue model in place in our business today. So I've created a gift for you. I've created a blueprint that's going to allow you to automate your marketing, automate your business processes, automate your servicing, automate your technology, to automate the things that are going on in your business every day. Anything that you're doing in your business more than 3 times in 1 month can probably be automated if you know what to do. So here's what I want you to do. Text the word Black CEO. Text the word Black CEO to 240-428-6333. Text the word Black CEO to 240-428-6333. And let's get busy building your evergreen revenue model. Let's get busy putting the automated processes in place in your business because it can do amazing things for you. Just the other day, I got a chance to take off work and take my son and his 5 boy cousins to go see Captain America in the Civil War movie. And it was great. And the thing is that automation allowed me to spend more time with those 5 black boys. And I'm gonna tell you, that's 5 black boys going to the movies. 5 black boys all want popcorn. 5 young black men that all want some Raisinets. 5 black men that all want some Coca-Cola. Let me tell you something. You need an evergreen revenue model just to feed those black boys. But in a day and era where we have so much to do, it is important that we get busy building our own ecosystem. So in closing, here's what I have to say. I was watching The Lion King the other day, and Mufasa and Simba are sitting there. And Mufasa looks out and he says to his son, one day, all of this is going to be yours. And I started thinking to myself, what did he mean by this? And immediately the song plays, The Circle of Life. It's all a circle. What will you pass on? As entrepreneurs, we've been too focused on ROI, a return on investment. It's time for us to move into an ROF, a return on finish. Complete something to the point that it can go on without your on-site supervision. My name is Trevor Otts. Have a great, wonderful, and spectacular day. Black CEO out.
I love the subject. The subject is powerful. The gospel according to consciousness, obedience, and discipline, leading to learning, earning, and returning. If we leave here with that good news, we can leave here empowered so that this, again, is more than a meeting. It's a movement. The gospel according to consciousness, obedience, and discipline, leading to learning, earning, and returning. Whatever else I've discovered in this life, if you're going to make it up the mountaintop of success, significance, and swaggerliciousness, you will not make it without getting scarred. You will not experience triumph without shedding tears. There is no such thing as progress without pain, as success without scars. And I've discovered that life and the Lord have a way of using the bad news of our being scarred to push us into the good news of, don't miss this, consciousness, obedience, discipline that will lead to learning, earning, and returning. How does that work? It works, my brothers and sisters, when we hear one like Langston Hughes testify, even though he reached the summit of literary brilliance. But listen to his own testimony as he says, I've been scarred and battered. My hopes the wind and scattered. Snow has frizzed me. Sun has baked me. Looks like between them they done tried to make me stop loving, stop living, stop laughing. but I don't mind. I'm still here. Check out what Langston Hughes is declaring. He is declaring that, yes, I have achieved the mountaintop of literary success and service and swaggerliciousness, but understand, I've been scarred and battered. The only way that we are going to experience that gospel of consciousness, obedience, discipline, leading to learning, earning, and returning, God has a way of allowing life to scar us, and out of that scarring we experience a power that enables us to make a difference in this world. I'm not coming through clear, and so I'll go ahead and quote, who is it? Lauryn Hill, because Lauryn piggybacks on Langston Hughes when she says black rage is founded on blatant denial, squeezed economics, subsistence, survival, deafening silence, social control. Black rage is founded on wounds on the soul. Do you see it again? The scars, the wounding. You will not reach the mountaintop of success, significance, and swaggerliciousness without getting scarred, but God has a way of using those scars to shape you and make you into what God has divinely designed and cosmically created to you to do before the foundations of the earth. I'm still not coming through, and so let me go ahead and call to the witness stand one who has blessed my life repeatedly. I'm calling on the ancestors right now, and out of eternity, here comes the incomparable Moses of our people, Harriet Tubman. Harriet, would you talk to me? I'm excited about the fact that, what was it, last month, the Secretary of the Treasury announced that in a few years we're going to have on the front of the $20 bill, Harriet Tubman. That lights my fire, that melts my butter, that rings my bell, that Harriet Tubman, an ex-enslaved Ashanti descendant, finding herself escaping the freedom and then turning around and reclaiming. I like it because she learned, she earned, and then she returned. I guess y'all didn't get that. I'm going to go ahead and help you out. You do recognize that Harriet Tubman is now going to be the face of the $20 bill. That should shout you, because watch what's going to happen. Andrew Jackson, who was that genocidal, racist, a slave owner, is moving to the back of the $20 bill. And Harriet is on the front of the $20 bill. I'm going to do that one more time to give you some shout room. Harriet Tubman is on the front, and Andrew Jackson, who did not see her as a human being, is now bringing up the back. Jack has got to get back, while Harriet Tubman is the face of the $20 bill. You're still not shouting. Harriet, I can't wait to get my Tubman. As soon as the Harriet Tubmans come out, that's all I want. Don't give me a 1, don't give me a 5, give me my Tubmans. I can't wait to get my Tubmans. Parenthetically, let's not just settle for Harriet being the face of the $20 bill, but let's make up our minds that women, especially our sisters, are going to get equal pay for the work that they do, because we want the $20 bill to mean for women the same thing that it means for men. Preach, Freddie Haynes, I already am. And so with that being the case, here is Harriet Tubman on the face of the $20 bill. But my brothers and sisters, I've already emailed and written the Treasury Department and demanded that they do not Photoshop her picture. Do not Photoshop her picture. Do not try to wash it and make it look like something it's not, because I don't want them to miss out on the scar that Harriet Tubman bore for all of her life. Let me see if I can remind you, Harriet Tubman, when she was just a teenager, already had a theology that informed her psychology and rebelled against an anthropology that said she was less than and not equal to. And as a consequence, Harriet Tubman got in the way on a plantation of one who was trying to run away. And when she got in the way, the overseer hurled a piece of lead in the direction of the runaway. It caught Harriet Tubman in the forehead. It literally fractured her skull, and for the rest of her life, Harriet Tubman was subjected to inexplicable and unexpected blackout. She would just pass out at a time when no one expected it. She would inexplicably, unexpectedly pass out. That's what would happen to Harriet Tubman. And so I don't want them to take that scar off of her forehead, because if you want to know how powerful she is, you've got to appreciate the scar that she experienced. And God sent me today to have a conversation with us, because as much as we're trying to succeed, you're not going to succeed without some scars. I appreciate and applaud George Frazier and Linda Clemens and David Townsend. I love hearing today from the amazing Sister Jolly. I saw Willie Jolly earlier, but for all of their success, there's a price they've had to pay. Go ahead and tweet this if you don't shout about it. If the grass looks greener on the other side, I promise you they're paying a higher water bill, because they've had to experience scars and pain. And with that being the case, the question is, are we going to allow them to take the scar off of Harriet Tubman? We can't take that, because it's her scar that God used. Here's your shout right here: to create a gospel of consciousness, obedience, and discipline. And as a consequence, she learned, she earned, and she returned. I'm not coming through. I got to still push this. And so pushing it further, you know I'm a preacher, so I hope you don't mind if I take a text right quick. In the 18th chapter of the book of Acts, the Bible says that the gospel globetrotter and trailblazing theologian from Tarsus, the articulate African apostle Paul, found himself in a jacked up situation of rejection, and he was literally so burnt out, experiencing a meltdown. He was ready to quit because he had been scarred by rejection, scarred by imprisonment, scarred by injustice, scarred by systems of oppression. And all of that caused Paul to be on the brink of giving up. But here we are in Acts chapter 18, and the Bible lets us know he tries to minister in a synagogue there in Corinth, and the Bible says that they reject him. They array like an army against him, and when they array like an army against him and oppose him, look what happens. The Bible lets us know that Paul then sets up shop, watch this, next door to the synagogue, and right next door to the synagogue, the leader of the synagogue receives his message. And then that night, God appears to Paul in a vision and says, Paul, I got you. Everything's going to be all right. I like that right there, because he is scarred, and yet out of that scarring, he is pushed to a gospel or good news of consciousness, obedience, and discipline that caused him to, here it is, learn, earn, and return. So how does that work, Emma? I'm glad you asked. It works like this. It works to begin with, and this may shout you right here, when you soon discover that God has a way of waking us up to what God is up to through what lets us down. I'm going to do that one more time, because life is going to disappoint you. People are going to hurt you. You will get stabbed in the back, but watch God. Consciousness. God will wake you up to what God is up to through what has let you down. I'm still not coming through, but you do understand the Bible lets us know that Paul, here it is in chapter 18, when he's rejected by the synagogue, the Bible says, Paul then says, forget y'all, from now on, I'm going to the Gentiles. Now, Bible readers know that back in chapter 9, God had told Ananias, who was to be a mentor to Paul, because everyone needs a mentor to awaken your consciousness. Ananias is Paul's mentor, and And Ananias is told by God, here's your shout, Paul is going to be a light unto the Gentiles. But from chapter 9 to chapter 17, he's trying to reach the Jewish community. But now he gets rejected in chapter 18 and says, all right, from now on, I'm going to the Gentiles. It took 7 or 8 or 9 chapters for Paul to catch up to what God was already designing and doing in his life. And there's someone looking at me right now who has been pushed into your purpose, who has been pushed by God, by disappointment and by scars into what God is up to in your life. Let me make this real plain because I did not come through. This is real good right here. I won't forget several years ago, I was invited to preach at an old school Black Baptist church in Oklahoma City. Old school, real old school. Old school deacon picks me up. Old school deacon says, young preacher, you're preaching for an historic church. I said, I'm honored to be here. He said, young preacher, but you don't even know how historic we are. We are a church that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. applied for, and we turned him down. Now, I could not believe that he had the audacity and ignorance to admit that they had a chance to call Martin Luther King Jr. as their pastor, and they turned him down. And he kept on talking. He said, yes, young preacher, I won't forget. It was 1953, and Dr. King was a student at Boston University working on his PhD. He came and preached for us. He applied to be our pastor, and we turned him down. Now, by now, I'm wondering if I'm at the right church. If this is an invitation I should have accepted, because this deacon doesn't have the sense to know that turning down Dr. King as their pastor was not necessarily a good thing. And so I kept that to myself because Mama taught me to respect my elders. But then he kept on talking, and he said, young preacher, I'm so glad that we were stupid enough to turn down Dr. King, because while we were playing checkers, God was playing chess. And so I said, excuse me. He said, yes, young 1953, he would not have been available in 1954 when Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama voted to call him as their pastor. If we had called him in 1953, he wouldn't have been around on December 1st, 1955 in Montgomery, Alabama, when Rosa Parks said she's not going to take it anymore. And as a consequence, he then became the spokesman for the Montgomery Improvement Association. I'm glad we turned him down, because if we had not turned him down, then he would not have led the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He would not have been the one to lead the march on Washington, which led to the passage of the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 and then the Voting Rights Bill of 1965. I'm glad we turned him down, because while we were playing checkers, God was playing chess. I'm simply trying to say that God has a way of using your disappointment as a divine appointment to set you up for what God has set up for you. And when you look back over your life scarred by disappointment, maybe you ought to give God a shout. Thank you for not letting me get what I thought I had to have. Thank you for using what let me down to set me up. But that's not all. That's not all. What's so powerful about this passage in terms of the consciousness awakening to what God is up to is consciousness then leads to obedience. Thank you, George. I like this shift and this improvisation, because the obedience now is here. Paul is, the door is shut to ministering in the Jewish community. But then next door, the Bible says, and here's your shout right here, that the president of the synagogue receives Paul's message, and that God, when we are scarred, has a way of taking the place of defeat and using it to sprout a victory that would not have occurred had the defeat not taken place. And so sometimes we ought to thank God for those losses. Thank God for things that did not go right and go well, because some things have to go wrong for us to get right. Oh, that was good. Let me do that one more time. some things go wrong for us to get right. And so as a consequence, here is Paul right there in Corinth and receives a victory in what should have been a place of defeat. I guess I got to give you another Harriet story, because Harriet helps me out right here. Do you not know, Bernie, that Harriet Tubman, watch this, she escapes to freedom up north. And when she escaped, and now there are all kinds of discussions and disputes about how many times she went back, because she learned, earned, and returned. And now scholars are saying, no, she didn't go back 19 times. It was 13 times. I don't care how many times she went back. She went back. She went back. And that's what the Power Networking Conference is trying to teach us. It's important for us to go back to our schools in the hood. And before you judge our kids for sagging pants, if you raise up their hopes, maybe they'll pull up their pants. Somebody has to go back. Go back. And so Harriet goes back, but she had never gone back to retrieve and rescue her parents. And as a consequence, she has a vision one night. And George, when she has the vision, God speaks and says, it's time to get your parents, because your parents are in jeopardy of being sold further south into slavery. That was a move that she was afraid to make. Why? Because her parents were up in age and the traveling would be quite taxing on them. But check out what happens. She hears from God and then goes to the office of Oliver Johnson. Oliver Johnson, a noted abolitionist there in New York. And she tells Oliver Johnson, Mr. Johnson, I've come to your office because God told me to come to you, because I have calculated how much it's going to cost to go get my parents, rescue them, and bring them to safety. And so Mr. Johnson said, you did, and God spoke to you and told you this? Yes. Well, how much did God tell you it's going to cost for you to go get your parents, since you don't have the money, evidently? And Harriet Tubman says it's going to cost $20. Okay. Harriet Tubman said it's going to cost $20 to finance me going back to get my parents. Y'all a little slow. Let me help you out one more time. Harriet Tubman, who's going to be the face of the $20 bill, said all I need to get my parents free is $20. $20. And Oliver Johnson said, and God told you this? Yes. Well, he didn't tell me. So since God didn't tell me, I don't know what you're going to do. Harriet says, well, what I'm going to do is go on a hunger strike in your office and stay here until I get $20. And do you know she went on a hunger strike? Oliver Johnson left the office, goes to a neighborhood pub, and there in the pub, check out what happened. He starts to drink and talk, and drink and talk. And the more we drank, the more we talked, and he started talking about this crazed woman called Moses, Harriet Tubman, who was told by God to get $20 from his office to go retrieve her parents from slavery. And the more he talked, the more other folk began to talk. And before you know it, they were all talking amongst themselves, and they collect an offering. They bring it to the office where she's on the floor asleep. They put it in her belt, and she had asked for $20. She ended up with $60. Now there's a passage that says, now unto him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all you can ask or imagine, according to the power at work within you. So here it is. Harriet retrieves her parents because she had learned, earned, and returned. Her consciousness gave her an obedience that led to her discipline that made a difference. I wrap it up with this by simply saying, here it is, Paul lets all of us know, once you learn, earn, and return, your power from your scars is accompanied by a God who works the night shift. I'm going to do that one more time. The power from your scars is accompanied by a God who works the night shift. Don't you love that passage? The passage says at nighttime, Paul received a vision. God showed up, and God said, Freddie Haynes remix, Paul, I know you're in Corinth. It's a hell of a place. but ain't no thing but a chicken wing, because to quote Kendrick Lamar, all's my life I had to fight, but if God's got us, we then gonna be all right. That was your shout right there. Kendrick Lamar is hot on that piece right there. All's my life I had to fight, but if God's got us, we then gonna be all right. You know what it means when God's got you? That used to mean something negative, but now Kendrick Lamar has baptized it in the literary creativity of hip-hop, and now as a consequence, whenever someone in hip-hop says, I got you, that's a good thing. I got you means you handle what you can, I'ma handle what you can't. I got you means you do your part, I'm gonna do my part, and my part is gonna overcome whatever comes against you. And that's the good news I give to everyone today. God says, I got you. If God be for you, who can be against you? I got you. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. I got you. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? God says from heaven, as you go back to Omaha and transform that community, I got you. As you go back to your community and learn, earn, and return, I got you. Is there anybody here who's glad to know God is shouting from heaven, I got you? I close with this. Thank you, George, for this remix. Thank you for this improvisational dictate, because the best thing I can give you, Harriet, talk to us one more time. I'm calling on Harriet. I hope you don't mind if I call on Harriet. Yes, Harriet, you got to help me, because at the beginning of my message, I told the people that your skull was fractured by the lead piece, meaning you were subjected to blackouts. As a matter of fact, I saw one picture of you leading people to freedom, having passed out underneath a sign that said, wanted, dead or alive, a woman called Moses, Harriet Tubman. But Harriet, you never got caught. You never lost a passenger. You were a nurse and a spy during the Civil War. You never got caught. You never lost a passenger, and yet you would pass out unconscious. How did you do it? Harriet said, tell my brothers and sisters at the Power Networking Conference, I never lost a passenger. I never lost a passenger. I was totally successful. I learned, earned, and returned, because as long as I was conscious, I was working for God. Knowing when I was unconscious, God was working for me. Peace.